Whether you're moving to Germany or you're visiting or you have someone visiting you in Germany, make sure to watch or share this video where we summarize the 10 cultural aspects of Germany that you should look out for so you're very well prepared for your visit here in Deutschland. Hey, my name is Jen and I'm from Guatemala.
And mine is Yvonne and I'm German.
And together we're from simplegermany.com, where we create English content to empower internationals to settle into life in Germany more smoothly.
Now we will be listing the 10 most important cultural aspects that came to our mind. However, if we missed some or you have more to add or specific for your region, please feel free to share your tips or differences in the comments below.
So the first thing is Ruhezeit, which means quiet times. And actually that is a thing in Germany. For example, every day after 10 p.m. you should not be making loud noise on the street, generally speaking, or in apartment buildings. Like don't start drilling at like 9:55 because your neighbor might complain about that.
Or turn up the music.
By the way, if you want to have a party and you know it's going to go after 10 p.m., we have a whole video on how to be a good neighbor where we explain how you can communicate this to your neighbors and not get into trouble because some of them might call the police accidentally.
Right. But most importantly is that on Sundays you will not be able to grocery shop or retail shop for that matter, because those shops will be closed. If you urgently need food, for example, then from our experience, the supermarkets at airports are open if you have an airport close by. Of course, not everyone does, but for us it would be a 20-minute train ride. And you can also, of course, always still get your bread and your Brötchen on Sunday mornings, usually until noon at the local bakeries.
Now, this next one is not necessarily all over Germany. It really depends on where you live. And in some parts, quiet times also is between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. from Monday to Sunday. Number 2 is the tipping culture in Germany. And yes, actually, people do tip in Germany, but only if the service is worth tipping, so to speak, if you have a good service.
Yeah, exactly. And the way that we tip, it's not that we say add 10%, add 15%, but we tell the full amount to the waiter directly. Let's say you have a check of 55 euro and you, let's say, would like to tip 5 euro, you would say 60 euros, please.
Yes. So don't, because we've had cases where people just add 10% and the waiter is like, no.
What do you mean with that?
Yes, exactly. So it's very important that you have to point out the number. And additional to that, you have to do that before the waiter actually, if you're going to pay with card, puts the numbers in the machine or anything like that.
Exactly.
If you're curious on more details on the tipping culture and how to do that specifically, make sure to check out our video that we did about tipping in Germany.
As number 3, I think it's super important to know that tap water in Germany is drinkable. There is no need to boil it before consumption. Just open the tap, have it cold ideally, that's the healthiest and the freshest version. And if you would like more information, then you can also watch our tap water video.
Now for the fruits and vegetables. The one thing I would say is that exotic fruits, of course, because they need to be imported, tend to be a lot more expensive and they don't taste maybe as intense as one is accustomed to. 2 examples that I have from my personal experience is papayas and mangoes. Not like mangoes sometimes are okayish, but not as delicious as they are at home. But the most important thing about this is that you don't need to disinfect the fruits and vegetables when you eat them. What do I mean by that? For example, in Guatemala, it's very common that when you buy fruits and vegetables or salad, for example, you wash them beforehand, which is important, but you don't only wash them with water. You usually buy this solution that you add 2 or 3 drops, which usually has some sort of chlorophyll in it to disinfect to disinfect the fruits and vegetables themselves from maybe other bacteria that might upset your tummy. In the case of Germany, you don't need to do that. Of course, it's important to rinse them. Sometimes lettuce also has dirt remains and whatnot, but there's no specific solution that you need to buy to eat them.
Now let's talk toilet etiquette. Yes, there is a thing and it is a talking point.
Yes.
Now, what goes in or not into the toilet? Toilet paper generally is totally fine to flush down. However, when it comes to hygienic products, they should not be thrown into the toilet. They should go into the bin next to it.
Yes, and unless I would say you go to a place and specifically says do not throw the toilet paper in the toilet, generally speaking, the toilet paper is fine.
Yes.
An additional point, and this is for men in general, and is that generally speaking, it's a custom for men to pee while sitting down in Germany. This is most important, I think, in private homes, not necessarily in restaurants. Sometimes in restaurants, you also have a pissoir where you can pee standing up. But at home, usually, if you're invited to a house, the expectation of the host is that the men will pee sitting down for hygienic reasons, I think. So just be sure you don't have to pee sitting down, but just make sure that you leave the toilet spotless if you use it, if you're invited to a German household.
And if you're out and about in a city in, let's say, the more touristic area with, a lot of gastronomy also, you might be asked to pay around 50 cents to €1 to use the bathroom Mainly, it's probably for people who are not customers of the bathroom, are just walking of the restaurant, and are just walking by. But especially here in the Rhineland, that is a thing that you will definitely experience.
Yes, and we've questioned this a few times, and the explanation that we have is that usually the people that are hired to clean the bathrooms, they're not hired by the restaurant or the service per se. So pretty much they earn an income by the money that they collect, and it's pretty much to keep the toilets clean in a way.
Yep.
Number 7 is that cash is the king of this country still, unfortunately. Especially like we were in Berlin recently, and the amount of we just accept cash everywhere that we saw was very impressive. I would say there in the Rhineland, or at least in Düsseldorf, we receive a little bit more of cards. But what do we mean by this? So generally speaking, most restaurants and other service providers will only accept cash. Even sometimes just taxis just accept cash. So the best bet is to ask beforehand, hey, do you accept card? Or may I also pay with card? And if you ask with card, be sure to ask whether Visa or MasterCard, because sometimes only EC-Karten are accepted, which are the German kind of debit card that's very specific for the bank accounts in Germany.
Let's talk recycling in Germany. It is quite a complex topic and we have a detailed video on it. However, in a nutshell, it is very important if you, let's say, visit a private household, because there we separate cardboard or paper that goes into the blue bin, or in a house, in a separate bin. We also separate plastic, typically the yellow bin, and sometimes even organic bio, we call it Müll, bio trash in Germany, which would be a brown bin, and everything else goes into the Restmüll, like the remainder garbage, pretty much. Exactly. So when you're in a household, ask where do I throw this, so you don't mix up the system that they have. If you're walking on the street and you need to dispose of glass bottles, let's say you bought yourself like a beer in a supermarket
or a Coke,
don't throw those away. Beers and any cans or plastic bottles, they have a so-called deposit, in German Pfand, where you can get back between 8 to 25 cents. The only bottles that actually go into the containers you see on the street are, for example, wine bottles or like containers where you had olives in or something like that.
Yes, so that you touched briefly on the next point, which is fund. And that is pretty much the deposit that you pay into buying things like sodas, what else? Pretty much beer and stuff like that. So how that works is that you buy it, you pay the deposit, and if you return it to special machines in supermarkets, you get the money back. So if you're on the street and you have consumed these things, the best habit is to just leave them next to a trash can, because there are certain people that dedicate or are searching for these bottles to earn some sort of income or additional income to what they already have, and they collect them from the streets as well. Now, number 10 is public transportation and the fact that there is a public transportation. We always compare things to kind of like my bar from Guatemala, where there are certain buses, but in Germany, there are public buses, trains, trams. Even in Hamburg, there's like ferries that are part of the public transportation system. So you can pretty much reach almost everywhere just with public transportation. Important things to note here is that when you buy a ticket, it is valid for 90 minutes one way. So don't think you buy a ticket and it's 90 minutes, so I can go all over the city. It's just one ride that accepts.
Well, not just one ride. What you said earlier was correct. One way. So if your one-way direction includes a bus and a train, you only need one ticket. You don't need two tickets for each ride in a vehicle.
That is a very fair point. Additional to that, some of the times you need to validate your ticket for it to become valid. We have a whole video explaining public transportation and how to do this, which you can also check there or in the description box below. And if you are going to be employed in Germany, make sure to ask your employer, because some German companies offer a benefit for the public transportation monthly pass. Either they give you a discount or they sponsor it 100%. So just make sure to ask. Who knows? Maybe you also can save some money there.
And if you're visiting, you can look at the daily tickets or sometimes also like 24, 48-hour tickets, depending on how long you're in a region, because they will probably end up being the better option than paying single rides if you use it more often during a day.
Yes, and a super cool tip is that you can also buy these things online through apps. So every city has their own, unfortunately, every city has their own app. We, again, go into detail in the public transportation one. But just an example, the Deutsche Bahn app, you can download it, and there you can also find all the trains. Pretty much in most cities, I would say. If you're actually moving to Germany, make sure to check out our video, which you can click here, on 10 things you need to know after you arrive to Germany as your new home. Until next time, cheers!